This is a University of Otago podcast.
All right, so we're back for our second talk today, and we have Ware and Sheila Skeaff, who are going to be talking about New Zealand food literacy in children.
Thank you very much. The title of our talk is Grow, Cook, Eat, and this project is about food literacy in New Zealand children, and it is a project that MSc student Lara Ware is doing. Very loud.
Okay, so I'd like to start off by introducing you to Clara Dunn. She's pictured here with Prime Minister John Key. Clara is a 12-year-old from Muriwai Beach who has just recently been awarded the Best Children's Cookbook for 2016 at the Gourmand Cookbook Awards in China. So Clara has written this cookbook by herself with some input by her mother, and so she's clearly a good example of a child who has extensive knowledge about food. So having good food knowledge and understanding is an important life skill. It enables us to make healthy food choices, particularly in today's complex food environment. It allows us to choose produce that's in season, saving money while we're shopping, and allows us to plan and prepare foods that provide a balanced diet that will contribute to good health. So I'd like to introduce the concept of food literacy. So literacy is the ability to read and write, or more technically, the competence or understanding of knowledge in a specified area. So food literacy is competence or understanding of knowledge in the specific area of food. Food literacy is the knowledge, skills, attitudes, and behaviours needed to have both a healthy and environmentally sustainable diet. It includes knowledge and action about food from farm to table, food for health, and food preparation skills. So we can split food literacy into three components. Our first is food origins, which is where food comes from and how it's grown or produced. Next, we have nutrition knowledge, and this is all about what's in our food, things like vitamins, minerals, sugar, and fats, how much of these things we need, and where we can get them from in our diets. And then finally, we have food skills, which is about how to cook and prepare foods and to do it in a safe manner so we don't get sick. So our research project, the aim of which was to find out how much Year 6 school children know about food. We assessed their food literacy, how much they know about food, using a 37-item multiple-choice questionnaire, which was accessible online. So we used iPads, in some cases schools' Chromebooks or their laptops to access the survey. It takes about 30 minutes for the children to complete. We aimed to assess 600 children across 3 major cities in New Zealand: Auckland, Wellington, and Christchurch.
Okay, so now we're going to just talk a little bit and ask the audience some of the questions that we've asked the children and see how you do. So the first, these are just a couple of examples from the food origin section. So here you can see a question. We've got a picture of cheese, and it says, from the choices below, what is cheese made from? So, would anyone like to tell me what they think cheese is made from?
Milk.
Milk is the answer. And is that right? Correct. Excellent. And I have to say that in our study, the children did very well at answering this question, so they had good knowledge of this particular aspect of food. Another question we asked is, where does the part of the food that you eat grow? So we've got bananas, mandarins, carrots, and tomatoes, and we want to know if they're under the ground, on a tree, or on a plant. So, anyone want to say where bananas grow?
Technically, it's a plant, isn't it?
I guess trees and plants are the same. Yes, technically, Rose, you're right. We've got on a tree, which is a plant. We might have to change our questions, Lara. And we've got carrots under the ground and tomatoes. That was a tricky one to find a picture, I have to say, so we might have to reassess this one. The next one, some questions we're going to show you, is from our nutrition knowledge. So what's in the food and how much do we need? So there was about 11 questions in this section. So here's an example of one. 1 regular can of cola has about 9 teaspoons of sugar. How many teaspoons of sugar are in the same size can of Diet Cola? Anyone? 3. Well, that was actually a very common answer. The answer is 0. And in fact, this was a very poorly answered question by the children. Another example of another question, nutrition knowledge. Select all the foods that count towards your 5+ a day. Okay? These are foods that fit in the fruit and vegetables food group. So, would anyone like to guess?
Peaches.
Peaches? Frozen peas? Apple? And in fact, this is the answer. The raisins is a tricky one because it is a very concentrated form of grapes and therefore has a high sugar content. So it's not included in the 5+ a day. The next section was about food skills, how to cook or prepare food safely. So here we go. You go to the supermarket with your parents to buy steak. When you get there, you do not have enough money. What other meat could you buy instead that is most like steak? So it's looking at children's, basically their resilience to do things on a limited budget. So I think it's relatively straightforward for the audience. How about this, over here? Mince, very good. So yes, and children generally did pretty well on that question as well. And then the last one is, choose all the foods below that should be cooked before you eat them. I think that's probably relatively straightforward for the audience. So potatoes, rice, mince, and raw chicken. And there's the answer. And again, children generally did fairly well on that question.
Okay, so we have some results. In total, we visited and we assessed children at 44 schools. We had 12 schools in Christchurch, 17 in Auckland, and 15 in Wellington. So we had fewer schools in Christchurch. We found that quite a lot was still taking part in rebuilds and moving around of schools after the earthquake. But initially, Christchurch was our best response, with 12 schools taking part. So we decided that we would do site visits in Auckland and Wellington. I travelled to Wellington for 2 days to visit 20 schools, and then a Master of Dietetics student who was working on this project as well, Daisy, she travelled to Auckland for 2 days and visited 22 schools across those 2 days, and we had a really good response doing site visits, which bumped up our numbers considerably. So we exceeded our 600 child goal, surveying 858 children. We had quite a nice even split of girls and boys, with 475 girls, 383 boys, and overall girls scored slightly better than boys in our questionnaire.
What age were they?
But there wasn't a huge difference. So our children were in Year 6, so their ages ranged from 8 to 11, most of them being 9 and 10. Some questions they answered really well. They really seemed to understand the concept of food packaging, why they have used by dates on them. And then other questions they found somewhat harder, which were things such as the 5+ a day and recalling how many serves of fruit and vegetables we're supposed to have each day. They found actually recalling the dietary guidelines a bit more difficult.
Great. That's our thing. So how food literate are you?
Yeah.
You're pretty good compared to 9 and 10-year-old children. Yeah, that's it. Great, we need children.
Cool, thanks very much for that. That
Okay.
was very interesting. Does anyone have any questions? No? Okay. I have a question. So this idea of nutritional literacy is really important, but also the field of nutrition is quite evolving, and new studies keep coming up, and things seems to be, there's a bit of a shifting ground on some aspects. Where do you think something like this, and different aspects of nutrition get more oxygen at different times? Where do you think the sort of sugar seems to be the one that's getting most of the attention now? Where do you think that's going to end up? Do you think it's going to die down, or do you think it is as big an issue as it's at the moment being made out to be?
Do I think that sugar is going to die down? I think that we're slowly kind of looking at our diets as a whole, but we're identifying different aspects that we need to change. And I think sugar is a big issue in our diets, particularly in certain people's diets, particularly with processed foods. It's in a lot of processed foods that's hidden, really. You get a lot of savoury foods that have quite a high sugar content. So I don't really think it's going to die down.
I think one of the things that we're interested in with regards to children is, and I think it's an important thing with regard to what people eat, is some of the basic fundamentals with regard to nutrition, like eating lots of fruit and vegetables and having a variety of different foods, and just basic food skills like knowing how to cook food so that when children, have some resilience of, going out and doing things for themselves. I don't think they're too affected at this particular time by some of the kind of fads that we see in the media at the moment. But the sugar one is a good one, and that's why we asked that question about how much sugar is in. And we've got some questions too in the stall about in sugary sweetened drinks. So it's also about empowering children to make the right choices and giving them those teaching them those skills early on. Yeah.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you very much.